Hey everyone, welcome to the Salon. I'm so incredibly pumped to have you here with us today. Okay, so for our 10-minute journey today, we're diving deep into an explainer that basically holds up a mirror to modern families. We are unpacking the brand new 2026 Parent-Child Reading Index report. This thing was just released in April 2026 by the folks over at Chengdu Shusheng Technology. And let me tell you, the scale of this research is literally game-changing. We're talking tens of thousands of homes surveyed. It fills this massive gap in what we knew about family dynamics. So if you've ever, sat there wondering how your nightly bedtime story stacks up against the rest of the country, well, you're in exactly the right place.
Okay, let's dive into this. What you're seeing here isn't just a thick stack of paper. It's a deeply researched, macro to micro view of how Chinese families actually read. This study tracked the daily lived habits of families with kids aged 3 to 12 across an unbelievable 56 cities in 31 provinces. And it doesn't just ask, hey, do you read? Nope, it digs way deeper. It looks at city education budgets, what your living room physically looks like, parent habits, and the real cognitive outcomes. It's connecting the dots between high-level city policies and what happens when you just sit on the floor and open a book with your kid.
Right, so before we get into the juicy rankings, and fair warning, some pretty shocking statistics, we need to establish our baseline. It's called the PCRI, or Parent-Child Reading Index. Think of this as our core measuring stick for this explainer. The researchers took all this wild data, like city budgets and exactly how many books are sitting on a kid's shelf, and mashed it into one single number. The national average score for families is set right at 100. Super simple to remember. Above 100, you're beating the national average. Below 100, well, there's some serious work to do.
So here's our roadmap. First, top reading cities ranked. Second, the impact of parents. Third, the missing fathers. Fourth, the digital reading era. And finally, 3 key findings.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1. Top reading cities ranked, the macro landscape.
And here we go. Beijing takes the absolute national crown with a massive score of 125.53. That puts them firmly in the excellent tier. Shanghai is right on their heels at 121.83. Then, right behind them, you've got Shenzhen, Chengdu, and Hangzhou forming the super tight competitive pack. But here's the thing the report makes absolutely crystal clear. There is a huge drop-off once you leave these Tier 1 cities. It turns out geography is a massive deal. It dictates your access to public libraries, community programs, the whole shebang. It's a harsh reality, but where you live totally shapes your starting line. But hey, as we'll see, money isn't everything.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how these cities are winning in completely different ways. Look at Beijing. They have this massive spike in educational funding. They literally just have the deepest pockets and the most heavily funded schools, brute forcing their score up. But Shanghai, they got their top-tier results with a much more balanced approach. They rolled out this really cool home plus bookstore community strategy. Basically, they integrated family education right into the neighborhood. Reading became a shared community event, not just an isolated chore. It absolutely proves that a smart, community-focused approach can totally rival massive funding.
And wow, this contrast gets even wilder when you look at Shenzhen and Chengdu. Back in February 2026, Shenzhen actually passed a reading promotion ordinance. They made parent-child reading an actual legislative priority, top-down law. But then you look at Chengdu. They didn't rely on huge budgets or strict laws. Instead, they scored a jaw-dropping 120.42 purely in parent-child reading behavior. Chengdu is literally the #1 city in the entire nation for actual day-to-day reading habits. Why? Because the parents there are just deeply personally engaged. They treat reading like a fun lifestyle. It just goes to show that sheer parental passion can go toe-to-toe with literal laws and giant budgets.
Okay, moving right along to Section 2, the impact of parents. Zooming into the living room.
So, we're leaving the city streets and walking right into your living room to ask a pretty tough question. Do your own reading habits silently dictate your child's success? Seriously, think about your own routine this week for a second. When was the last time you picked up a book just for you, instead of, scrolling on your phone while your kid did homework next to you?
Well, the data here is just fascinating. A really awesome 92.7% of families do read together. That's great, but the quality of that time? It completely hinges on you being a genuine role model. If you read 3 or more times a week for your own pleasure, your kids' reading outcomes shoot straight into the excellent category. But, and here's the kicker, if you rarely read, there's a 50% chance your reading time with your kid has 0 actual interaction.
The researchers call it formalistic reading. You're physically there, maybe holding the book, but cognitively, you're checked out, maybe thinking about work emails. Kids are smart. They totally mirror that disengagement, and their cognitive benefits just plummet.
Which brings us to Section 3, the missing fathers, a critical gap. This right here is probably the most provocative, hard-hitting finding of the entire 2026 report. 40%. In 4 out of every 10 families they surveyed, only the mom participates in reading. The dad is just entirely absent from the routine. And it gets worse over time. When kids are toddlers, grandparents usually pitch in to help. But as kids hit 10 to 12 years old, the homework gets tougher, right? Grandparents understandably step back. But fathers, they still aren't stepping up. For 10 to 12-year-olds, mother-only participation skyrockets to 60%. Mothers are carrying this massive, exhausting burden for the next generation's cognitive development, all on their own. And this brilliantly illustrates why that absence is such a big deal. When only mom is participating, the average reading score sits at 92.2. Remember our baseline? That is way below the national average of 100. But when both parents jump in, or when the dad intentionally takes the lead, the kid's score leaps up to between 110.2 and 111.4. That is huge. This isn't just about giving exhausted moms a break, although we definitely need to do that. This is hard, scientific proof that a dad's active presence literally triggers a massive leap in a child's reading comprehension and success. It's an absolute game changer.
All right, on to Section 4, the digital reading era, future investments.
So how are families trying to fix this? Well, they're voting with their wallets. Families are spending between 1,000 to 3,000 RMB a year specifically on kids reading. And crazy enough, over 60% of them now explicitly prefer digital platforms over traditional books. Why the shift? Because digital tools solve the 2 biggest headaches for tired parents at the end of the day. What on earth do we read, and how do I keep them focused? Digital platforms offer this amazing interactivity that just hooks kids in. They have endless resources, and this is the best part, scientific grading. The app knows exactly what cognitive level your kid is at, taking all the guesswork right off the parent's shoulders.
And finally, Section 5, 3 key findings. The value for our future.
We've covered a ton of ground today, right? So the crucial point is this. If we really want to elevate the next generation, we have to act on these 3 vital findings. Step 1. Parents, you can't fake it. You have to be an active role model. Show your kids that reading is actually fun, not just a chore. Step 2. Fathers, we need you back at the reading table. The data is undeniable. When both parents are in, kids thrive. And Step 3. Embrace the future. Use those scientifically graded digital tools to make reading interactive and perfectly tailored to your kid. These aren't just dry numbers. These are the actual building blocks for an incredible future.
Thank you so much for joining me to unpack all this amazing data. Before we wrap up, I just want to leave you with this. If one single book can change a kid's night, what could an entire city of engaged parents do for our future? I really hope this explainer sparked some curiosity and maybe even inspired a new bedtime routine for your home tonight. Until next time, Tao Chui Salon, Manian Xinglong.